Alright, what we're looking at here is my CZ457, which I've made some updates to, obviously. Put it in a chassis from the CZ Custom Shop. I did not buy it in this configuration, and I'll talk a little bit about what I've done here to the rifle. I have done aftermarket stocks in the past, especially on CZ rifles. I had a CZ452, which I put into a, an Applejack red Boyd stock. Had pretty good results with that at ELR distances, kind of like that. Then I bought the 24-inch barreled CZ457, which I really like the action better. I had it in a nutmeg Boyd stock, and I had, it was okay. It was okay. The length of pull is too short, the cheek riser was kind of chintzy, so I opted to go for this. And the reason I did is pretty much the way that I use the rifle. That matters, and that changes kind of how I want the rifle set up. I do mostly a little bit of NRL 22 with just a local gun club, a handful of friends, and pretty laid back. Nobody's running, extreme ammo even. We're pretty much stuck with bulk box right now because of the shortage, and so this rifle works really well for that because it's chambered in such a way that bulk box works fine. It works good. I still shoot match ammo occasionally, and when I can find it, that works great. But what I'm doing right now is mostly precision target plinking, NRL 22, and then also I'm shooting groups, and I'm shooting long range, and I mean actual long range, excess of 500 yards. I have some videos on my channel shooting up to 627 yards with certain rifles, and this rifle is no exception to that. It certainly is capable of shooting really far, and in fact I think the chassis has just brought it to the next level as far as ease goes for me and comfort in making it a really accurate rifle. Something with NRL 22 mag changes and putting in fresh mags. I've had a little trouble with this one just because it doesn't really have much of a what would you say, like it doesn't have a flare to it, so you can just slip it right in. I don't know, it's not the biggest deal, but I think they probably could have put something like that in there. I still like it, and I think aesthetically the chassis itself just looks a lot better than it did in the nutmeg. The nutmeg wasn't bad, but this is the look I would prefer if I had to pick between the two. So a couple things. I like the ergonomics so much more. It allows me, since it has a buffer tube now, it doesn't come with that, by the way. The CZ Custom Shop chassis doesn't come with a buffer. You still have to buy all those extra things, which is just unfortunate, but I put on a rifle length buffer tube, and I put on a Fab Defense stock, which I'll have to make a review on because it's such an excellent stock. And it allowed me to get my thumb, if you look at my thumb placement there, I can kind of place it on the tang of the chassis, and my fingers on that Fab Defense pistol grip are just perfect. I think the spacing on this is better than any other rifle that I've shot, actually. Somehow, even though this doesn't have a thumb rest, which it probably could have, it's just perfect for my large, the extra large size hands. I wear extra large size gloves, and so for me, the length of pull, the distance, the ability to get pressure just between that trigger pull finger, my index there, right on the fingerprint, and then my thumb, I get pressure pretty straight back, and I've improved that trigger, so it's running like a 12-ounce trigger right now. Really, really light. It's a 2-stage, but there's almost an indiscernible first stage. It just allows me to get the right trigger pull each time, especially when I'm shooting for groups. Right now I'm just shooting at 100 yards, and it's just a little windy out. I'm getting some bad mirage, but as far as comfort goes, extremely comfortable, extremely flat, very repeatable is what you're looking for in a precision rifle. You need repeatable, consistent, that's what precision is the repeatability of the system to perform and act the same way without things getting chaotic, and mostly this rifle is that way. I think the long barrel is a little complicated as far as getting dirty, but the chassis has improved my ability to be accurate with this precise rifle, and so I'm seeing more accuracy, especially from positions. So you can see you can throw on a sling, and so I just have like a Magpul Gen 1 sling here, not anything expensive or special. QDs on both sides, and then I obviously have the wrap stock for the secondary or rear QD. Works really well. I do practice that a little bit every once in a while in NRL 22. You can take shots from a sling, or that's the only piece of gear that's allowed, and so I try to keep one sling on there, and it's not anything expensive, it's not too special, but it's comfortable enough, and it works well with this rifle. I think the QDs are in a good location as far as I can tell. Seems really solid. The build quality of this chassis is excellent. It really looks great. There wasn't a single defect on anything I could see in that entire stock. And so again, very consistent in my hand placement, very comfortable. And the only thing I could say is maybe that forearm could be just a ½ inch wider. That's one preference I have. I usually like kind of wide, flat forearms for slapping down on a bag or shooting off, a tripod or something like that. But as it is now, for a guy who's not great at standing and shooting, these standing shots are on an 8-inch target at 100 yards, and I hit most of them, which I was kind of impressed with. I think the ability to use the stock and the chassis and that sling, it's just improved the system for me a little bit more with the placement. Another little critique I could throw out there is the barricade nub, if you want to call it that. Most chassis have some sort of little barricade or stopper just forward of the magazine well, so that you're not putting pressure against the magazine and nosediving your rounds. This one, now I'm shooting off a bag, but when I'm actually shooting off a barricade or a wooden block or a spindle or something like that, that little knob or the nub ahead of the magazine, it's just a little small for my liking. If you take a look right there, I think they could have done more and closer to the magazine to make it just a little more effective. So again, most of the time the way I'm using it, I'm practicing for NRL 22, I'm shooting a lot of bulk ammo, but I want repeatability and consistency. And so the way that this chassis is set up, it just works better for my frame overall. It's much more comfortable. I can put on the exact stock I want. I'm not stuck with a wood stock where you're going to have to physically modify a stock like that. This allows me just so much more customization with the rest of the rifle, and I know it increases that cost. Some people are very cost sensitive concerning these things, and so maybe it's not for you if that's the way you're looking at things. But if you don't want to spend voodoo money, but you want pretty good performance, I would say this is a really reasonable option. You can spend basic money on a 4.57 rifle, even a Scout, somewhere around the $400 or $500 price point, and then you could buy a chassis like this and get it exactly the way you want it, which is what's happening for me. I really, really am fond of this setup, exactly as you see it right now. So just getting behind the rifle, you can see that I have a longer length of pull with that Fab Defense stock, and it's just so much smoother with that little bit extra longer forend. That's one thing that's really big to me. I really like the longer forend for just giving you a little bit of extra material to rest the rifle on. In different stages I found that beneficial, especially with your bag, and then extending that bipod out there, that's always useful. And for me, this setup, how it is right now with the pistol grip, it's just really natural. I'm used to it. This is kind of how most of my rifles are being set up, so that's why the chassis is just such a win for me. So I'm shooting at an 8-inch target. I know this isn't magic, it's not hard. Most of us could do this. Most rifles could do this on that big of a target. But it's just the fluidity, the smoothness of it. I've just noticed that this versus the wood stock I had, it is so much smoother. I'm faster. So I'm making up time in NRL stages that I didn't before. And I'm just noticing the benefits of having something that's very linear, very flat, and that stock is in line with the bore, which really actually helps quite a bit. So there it is. Is it for you? Well, you're going to have to spend some money. You'll have to make up your mind on whether you can spend that kind of money or not, or if you should just go straight to a voodoo rifle. If you want to get a custom chamber and barrel, it kind of depends what kind of money you're going to spend or what you're willing to throw at it. But for me, this chassis is a great middle of the road option. You're looking at around $2,500 to $3,000 top to bottom with everything included.